A sestike vi means literal translation from Latin and French means it is you who are the life. C'est tu, que vi. It is you who lives. Transliterated, it means basically beneficiary of an estate. Literally in law, it means the life by which an estate is measured. So we are all an estate. Remember I said we're in a landed estate. In law, this is how property is held. When I said yesterday that the Pope issued a papal bull in 1302 called the Unum Sanctum, and there were other papal bulls that followed in the next 200 years, but that was the starting point. He expressed the first testamentary trust. A testamentary trust is a trust created for death. My last will and testament. Because what they were going to create is the civitas, the civil body, as the containment field of all of our life force in an artificial construct, a fiction in law, that all of our living beings were considered dead fictions. It is, as I said yesterday, a cult of death. Back to what I said in the beginning about the Isis-Osiris mystery cult. When Osiris was resurrected, he then went underground and became the god of the underworld and the god of death. And he would be the gate through which you had to pass if you, when you died, and he would weigh your heart against a feather. And if your heart was heavier than a feather, which means you were weighted by the artificial constructs of the matrix reality in your mind, the world, you could not pass. But if you had money and you became part of the elite and you aggregated money through the temple and banked your money at the temple, you would be able to pass and be ascended into the ranks of heaven. And in the Egyptian system, they had two primary bodies called the Ba and the Ka. The Ba was the physical body, the Ka was the, say, spiritual body, our being. So the more you earned in money, the more you could pay the priest to do the higher levels of rituals, all the way up to the pharaoh who got the full Monty. So you could get a permit to pass, even though your heart may be very heavy, because the rest of the masses didn't have the money to pay to pass, to ascend to heaven, to merge your Ba, your physical body, with your Ka. So you had to gain the money and pay the priest to get a variance in your law form, the law of the priest, so you could rise and ascend in the levels of the dimensional pathway or stairway to heaven. And the priest in the temple was the temple of Anu. Remember, he's the head honcho. He is the arch that stands on the two pillars. So you have the Ba and the An and the Ka, and you merge it together, you get what? Ba An Ka. You have the bank. Okay? So you are out picturing yourself into the world to chase this illusion called money in order to earn enough to merge your Ba with your Ka. But you don't need to do that. If you remember who you are, you can do it here with your own being now. Okay? So have a look at the logo of the IRS. And your eye and your mind will first see an eagle. Sort of a impressionistic image in black and white of an eagle. Looks like it's got the beak and the head and so forth. But if you look really closely, you will see on the right side an image of the Grim Reaper with scales, and on the left side, the feather. Okay? Because the IRS is also the gateway, because it is the mechanism for settling the debt, the liability against the estate. So, back to the Sestike Vi Act. A Sestike Vi is the beneficiary of an estate, the life by which an estate is measured. And you know the passage from a principal to an heir. It's all about the passage of the estate within the larger whole of the global estate that the Pope established as a testamentary trust in 1302. A testament. When you go to their courts, what do? Testify. But for all you men who, when you get out of the shower in the morning and you dry yourself off, what are you drying in between your legs? Your testes, your balls that have been castrated, and you have put them under lock and key in their artificial court system when you establish a dead testament of your life force within the testamentary trust that was created. That's where the word testify, testament, and all the rest of it comes from. It has to do with the castration of that masculine principle that I talked about. So the Pope created the first testamentary trust and put all of us in there. And so trust law and estate law are the primary components of how we are put in the containment field. And I'll get into the detail of that in a minute. So Sestake V is the beneficiary, the life by which a estate is measured, because the Sestake V must be alive for the estate to be held. And when he dies, it's passed to the heirs, who then become, or the heir, the singular heir. That's why the firstborn male had to receive the entire estate. If you've looked at, the royalty and aristocracy, how estates were passed, it had to be passed through the patrimony. But it's all under the hierarchical pyramidal structure to the Papa, the Father in heaven, who took the arch of the Son and converted it to the Father, the Vicar of Christ, who would sit in the artificial heaven. That's why Paul of the Bible was first Saul, because Saul is a derivative of the word soul. So it was the Son becoming the Father. But Christianity says the opposite. It's the Father becoming the Son. It's always a mirror image. It's all artificial mirrors, smoke and mirrors, and all the rest of it. So that's the passage of the estate. And so only the elite, of course, can hold the estate. They can only be the landed gentry. And so, for example, in 1215, when the Magna Carta was created, we've got all these people saying common law and the Magna Carta and jury of your peers, but it's only for the peerage, the elite, the landed gentry. You're not of the peerage. You don't deserve a jury of your peers. They may tell you you do, but you're off the land. You're in a containment field, so you don't deserve it. Okay, because you're a bankrupt. So a Sestake V is the beneficiary. So the Sestake V Act says, because men were going to see, when they use the word men, that was real men, landed gentry, not the landless serfs. They're not men in their world, in their reality. So the Sestake V Act says when men would go to sea, they would be lost. They would be presumed dead. And we have no way to settle our estates, to pass our estates to the next beneficiary and name the new Sestake V. So the Sestake V Act provided for when a man goes to sea and is presumed dead because he does not return, then after 7 years we are going to declare him dead, and the executors of the estate can move in to take control of the estate and settle the liabilities and the claims against the estate, operate the estate, accrue profits and proceeds until such time as it's passed to the next Sestake V, which might be a minor. So when the minor becomes of age, it's passed to his capacity. Of course, some men went to sea, were presumed dead, were actually established in the record as being dead after 7 years. And they came back. Maybe they were enjoying an island life for 10 years, got tired, wanted to go back to London. They had to reclaim their estate. In the last Hobbit movie, when Bilbo came back, what did he have to do? He had to claim his estate. He had to prove who he was as the living beneficiary. You have to prove that you're alive because you're presumed dead. Because for as long as you're attached to a dead civil fiction, you are indeed dead. And since we began our existence billions of years ago and decided to separate ourselves and create this original split and polarity within ourselves, we have been dead. We have not been in life. If we were in life, we would not have allowed ourselves to become destroyers of worlds, as Robert Oppenheimer said when the first atomic bomb was exploded, which is a quote from one of the Hindu texts, the Mahabharata, for Shiva, the destroyer. He said, I have become the destroyer of worlds. Well, guess what? We are the destroyer of worlds. Look at this world. Look what we've done to it. Not outside of ourselves. We've accepted and allowed them to do it. Anytime we say they are doing it, we are disempowering ourselves. So I suggest we stop saying that and accept the fact that we have allowed it. Hence, we are the destroyer of this world. But it's time to stop, or we will destroy it truly and absolutely. So you must come back and prove you're a living being. You must walk into life. Okay, this is some of the layered metaphor in the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament. You must claim the ancestral estate. And the ancestral estate, to boil it down to the essence, is your genetic lineage. This is why in the Old Testament, in Gene Isis, God has Abram, which in the Egyptian language means the lover of Ra, for Amun-Ra, the sun god, who is hidden. And by the way, if you wanted to know where Israel came from, it comes from Isis, Amun-Ra, and El Elyon, Israel. The solar cult, the lunar cult, and the stellar cult. It was a corporate merger, essentially. And Zionism is simply Sion, Set, Isis, Osiris, Nephthys. It's those four gods, the light and the dark, to be merged at the end of time. In that outpictured singularity that we have projected into their hologram, that is our hologram, because we are the batteries that fueled it, energized it, and created it. So we must walk into life, not like the New Testament version of it, but in the true sense of walking our being into this physical reality and taking control of it. Stop looking outside of ourselves. Stop waiting for something to save us, because we are our own savior. And it's all in the law. It's all outpictured in the law. That's why when I started studying law 25 years ago, I knew it was exactly where I needed to be. And I've spent the last 25 years breaking down, peeling the layers, and figuring it all out. Okay? Because of my previous 30 plus years of studying all the metaphysics and et cetera, and looking for the way out. Believe me, I wanted out, just like all of you, I have no doubt. Okay? Because this environment, this reality is horrendous to beings who honor life. Anybody disagree with that? So we must walk back into life. We must settle the waters of commerce, because back to the vessel of commerce into which we were placed when our mother abandoned us and they severed the patrimony, meaning our father is not on the birth certificate in the way that legally says that we are the heir and beneficiary to his estate. So we become a ward of this, the estate, the estate, the state, and that's how they control all of the legal structure through the fictions and everything else that everybody's fighting against. We don't have to fight it. The remedy is in the law. If you want to stop being the bonded surety and correct your status in order to have standing. Because only a man or a woman who has standing can state a claim. And stating a claim is equal to staking a claim. You've heard of staking a claim, like a gold claim? Put your markers on the corners of your land and claim the land and become a landed, holding the land. I won't say gentry, but basically claiming your landed estate and holding land. In America and the United States, we have a unique capacity. And I can't go into that because that's truly an entire course. But we have the ability to return and activate and basically claim our estate, claim the land, because of some of the uniquenesses of the way the United States and the United States of America, all like 12 or 15 of them, I stopped counting a long time ago because there's lots of them, how it was originally created. It all goes back to the Cestui Que Vie, because we're presumed dead, because we're a ghost on a commercial vessel lost at sea. Like the Cestui Que Vie, when a man goes away and is lost at sea, we're lost in the sea of commerce because we bonded ourselves to the commercial construct of how what we call money is created as monetized debt. It's all under the UCC, the nature of a secured party and a debtor. In fact, we are the secured party. There's a vast amount of equity that we can claim only if we have standing, because a bankrupt has no standing. You cannot claim your estate or claim anything. You are chattel property. That's how everyone, except for 4 people in this room, are established in this system. I am not chattel property. I'm a private American national standing on the land with status to state a claim, and I have done so. I've claimed all the equity that is behind my estate. I've claimed my ancestral estate. I've proven that I am alive. I've claimed my landed estate. I've claimed my DNA. And I've rescinded the baptismal certificate, whether you're a Catholic or a Christian or not at all, because either you took a baptismal ritual in your church as a young person, or you were put into a birth certificate containment field, a certificate of vital record, which is a baptismal certificate. All county recorders are Catholic priests. Okay, it's all in the ecclesiastical construct of the way the whole system is set up. So we, 3 of my compatriots back there and myself, 4 of us, and many more, right now somewhere between 50 and 100, in the last 3 years have perfected the status correction process of how to claim our ancestral estate, claim our DNA, rescind the baptismal certificate and attachment. And we have an entire document which is called a Declaration of Status. We record it, we send it to the Commander-in-Chief, because the Commander-in-Chief is the highest military officer, not just for the United States, the whole world, because those 3 city-states are divided for how they control the world. The Crown controls the law form, the bar system, everything I've mentioned, and Washington, D.C. is primarily the military and commercial construct. That's why the Federal Reserve note is the binding jurisdiction. If you use a Federal Reserve note, you have no standing. You're actually an enemy of the state, just by the money you have in your pocket. About 20, 30 years ago, the Attorney General of New York proclaimed, and he had the right to do so because New York, after all, is the empire state, the Roman Empire. He claimed that anything that passes through his jurisdiction for a millisecond or a second or any time longer is in his jurisdiction. And do you know that every central bank and practically every bank on the planet sends electronic wires through New York City with Federal Reserve notes every second of every day? So every nation on the planet as a corporation is under that hierarchy of the Crown through the United States. That's why this is global and universal, but we have perfected it in the United States first. We're going to continue from here to start doing what the variations are as required for the rest of North America and all the rest of it. This is the capacity that we have. The key in terms of the U.S. system is under the Prince Elector is an elector who holds the land. So you've heard of the Electoral College. That's who has the standing to elect a representative. The President of the United States of America. Read the Constitution. There are only 2 places where the United States of America is stated or mentioned. The rest is just the United States. In the preamble, it says, "We, the people of the United States," which meant the original union of states, the republic, et cetera, create a more perfect union, et cetera, all that it says there, "do establish and ordain this Constitution for the United States of America." which in 1783 was identified as under George III as Prince Elector and Arch Treasurer. See how deep it goes? And I'm only scratching the surface. Okay. So Obama is the President of the United States of America, which is a crown corporation. But it's a contract with we the people. But you cannot be, and it's not a contract that we want to be a part of. Okay, we're not a part of it. We don't want to have constitutional rights. They don't exist. Okay, we want substantive, unalienable rights to be solvent and not a bankrupt. That's what a private American national who is on the land is, who can be and is a qualified elector because he or she, of course back then it was only he, but we're creating it so it's equal. You don't have to worry about ERA or equal rights. You know, that's bullshit. That's another rabbit trail. Obviously all women and men are equal. But we can be qualified electors. We are qualified electors because we're on the land, and we can actually reseat the republic. That's a long story, etc. I'm not going there. I'm just touching on the key points. So the key back to the Sesta-KV Act is you must claim your estate, prove you're alive, and do the steps to perfect your status, including claiming your DNA. Because it goes back, like I said, gene ISIS. There's a lot more construction, esotericism, symbols, etc. Again, we don't have time to go in there. So that's essentially what I've been doing for my last 50 years. What have you guys been doing? And 4 to 5 years ago, after 20 years of basically forging it alone with my wife, myself, and a handful of cats, handful of little Panteras. But that's enough for a society. Key beings showed up and started working together. And basically the last 4 years we have been building Pantera de Oro and the Gemstone University. It is a private society. The nature of a private society goes back 600 years ago. It goes back to the original guilds and fraternities and unions and churches in the city of London. So if it's good for them, it's good for us. They cannot refute it. We use everything in their system, including ecclesiastical law and so forth. But with my knowledge and precision in terms of language and etymology, which means the roots of words, and esoteric structures, everything that I've sort of introduced here, I know how to shift it into basically living constructions, not dead fictions. So we don't have to be a living corpse as a corporation, but we can be the body of the congregation. That's a society. We've come together as a living body to assist ourselves and each other in a form of mutual benefit to walk into life, to quiet the waters of commerce, to remove ourselves from the field of battle. That gets into a whole part of the construction in terms of the military occupation, how that was put together from the 1860s onward, to the Declaration of Bankruptcy in 1933, to something called the Emergency Banking Relief Act, in which something called the Trading with the Enemy Act was amended from 1917, that said all persons in the United States, within the United States, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, essentially must be controlled as enemies of the state. Okay? So if you're using a Federal Reserve note, which means even if you're in Australia or Mexico or anywhere in these corporate nations, because all their central banks have what? The Federal Reserve as the reserve currency. You're all essentially persons subject within and subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. So the illusion that almost everybody has here in this kind of setting where people are going offshore, moving their money, doing trust, corporations, et cetera, is unfortunately, if we don't stop it here and transform it to a living system in support of life, it will eventually take over everybody. Some may enjoy a reasonably nice life with Bitcoin or whatever. But if your status is not corrected, if you have not severed that surety relationship, eventually they're going to come gobble you up. So we have no choice. You can run, but you cannot hide. This is where we draw the line in the sand. This is what Pantera, as a private American national on the land, individually and as a collective body, as a private society, is about. And it's not about being a hierarchy. It's not about creating a religion. It's not about me being some sort of, whatever. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in being anybody's guru or master or any of that crap. Okay? I'm interested to walk with you together into life and to support you if you choose to take those steps to come do it and help us build it. We have perfected some things that are absolutely unique. The understanding of everything that I've gone through, the energetic aspect of transmuting what you become aware of. So our status correction course, which those notebooks are only a third of the documents, but it starts with something called an inter vivos trust. Inter vivos means amongst the living, not testamentary for the dead. Okay? Inter vivos. And it's called, my Inter vivos trust is Kenneth Scott, an authentic declaration by Kenneth Scott, a living man, a living beneficiary. And in it, I've claimed my estate. I've proven I am alive in a court of my peers, which is our own court. We don't have to go into their courts, because the minute you do, you're in a battlefield in commerce. And you are an enemy belligerent. And I can show you chapter and verse exactly where this is in all of the books, and the statutes, and the treaties. But there are certain things that are binding in those books and statutes and treaties on them. But it takes living beings who have established their standing and capacity to direct them to establish your will. Because the first thing we do in the status correction course is, once we establish who we are and claim the estate, prove we're alive in a court of our peers, we express our will.